I stood at my own wedding reception and smiled for every single photo, while a secret bank account my husband had opened was actively draining our future. I didn't know it yet, but the man holding my hand had just committed a fraud that would cost us far more than money. By the time I found the statements, he had hidden over $80,000. And the reason wasn't an affair, it was a startup he believed in more than our marriage. My name is Jessica, and for 3 years I believed I was building a life with my best friend. What I didn't know was that I had become the unwitting investor in his secret venture and our marriage was the collateral. This is what financial infidelity looks like, not a hidden affair, but a hidden balance sheet. It's more common than you think, with 1 in 3 people admitting to lying to their partner about money. And it all started not with a lie, but with a dream he refused to share. I met Ben in the spring of 2019. He was the charismatic founder of a fledgling tech startup, and I was a financial analyst who thought she could spot risk from a mile away. Our first date was coffee that turned into a 4-hour conversation about everything from blockchain to our favorite hiking trails. He was all big ideas and infectious optimism. I was cautious, pragmatic, the product of watching my parents argue about credit card debt every Sunday night. We balanced each other. Or so I believed. Ben's startup was called Node. It was an app meant to streamline freelance project management. When we met, he was working out of a shared co-working space, living off savings and a small seed round from an uncle. The dream was tangible, but the numbers were thin. I loved that about him, the audacity to build something from nothing. Within a year, we moved in together. We merged our lives with a spreadsheet because that's what I did. We calculated rent ratios, grocery budgets, and even our shared Netflix subscription. It felt responsible. It felt like a partnership. But here's the first red flag I painted white. About 6 months in, I noticed Ben was increasingly secretive about his phone. He angled the screen away, take calls in the other room. When I asked, it was always investor stress or a co-founder dispute. He'd pull me close and say, "Just don't worry your beautiful analytical head about it. I'll handle the storm, you're my calm port." And I wanted to be that. I wanted to be the supportive partner, not the nagging accountant. So I stopped asking. The wedding was in October of 2021. My parents, solidly middle-class teachers, contributed what they could. Ben's family helped too. We had a modest, beautiful day. We wrote our own vows. His included the line, "I promise to build a future with you that's as secure as it is spectacular." I believed him. We returned from our honeymoon in Costa Rica, giddy and sunburnt, and sat down at our kitchen table to finally fully merge our finances. Joint account for bills, shared savings goal for a house. It was a fresh start. This is where you need to understand the pressure point. The housing market was insane. To buy even a starter home in our area, we needed a substantial down payment. Our plan was aggressive: live on my salary, pour every spare dollar of Ben's unpredictable startup income into savings, and buy in 2 years. I created the budget, I tracked every category. He called me his CFO. I thought it was a term of endearment. Now rewind slightly. 2 months before the wedding, Ben came home buzzing. Node had finally, supposedly, landed a pilot project with a mid-sized marketing firm. This was the break. He needed to scale the platform fast, which meant more server costs, a part-time developer. He said he'd secured a small business loan to cover it. He showed me a document, a loan agreement. I glanced at it, saw the amount, $50,000. My stomach dropped, but he was so excited. "This is it, Jess. This is the catalyst. We'll pay it back before we even need the down payment." I signed as a co-sponsor. Love makes you co-sign on more than just documents. The pilot project dragged, then it stalled. Questions about the loan payments started. Ben's answers became vague, then defensive. The revenue cycle is longer than expected. The client is slow to pay. It's all under control. The tension had a new roommate in our apartment. It sat with us at dinner. Then the first strange charge. It was on our joint credit card, the one we used for groceries and gas, a $500 charge to something called AWS. Amazon Web Services, cloud computing. I asked Ben, he didn't flinch. "Oh yeah, that's for Node. The business card is maxed out. I'll transfer money over from the business account to cover it." A week passed, no transfer. When I reminded him, he got a text, pretended to read it, and said, "Shoot, investor call." "We'll do it tonight." We didn't. I need to pause here because this is the moment where trust starts to fracture. It's not a loud explosion, it's the silent spiderweb cracking glass. You see it, but you tell yourself it's just a scratch, it won't spread. You tell yourself you're being paranoid, controlling. After all, he's under pressure. He's building something for us. But my analyst brain, the part I'd been quieting, started running a different report. I began noticing little things. Ben was suddenly reluctant to look at our budgeting app together. He'd suggest we take a break from money talk. He bought a new laptop without discussing it, a necessity he claimed for development work. The math in our shared savings account was getting fuzzy. The growth wasn't matching our projections, even with his supposed sporadic income. The fight happened on a Tuesday night. I'd finally done what I promised myself I wouldn't. I logged into our banking portal alone. The joint savings account was supposed to have around $40,000 in it. It had $28,000. A $12,000 discrepancy with no large withdrawals I knew about. I confronted him, my voice shaking. He was calm, too calm. "Jessica," he said with a sigh of someone explaining something simple to a child, "that's the loan payment. I had to make a quarterly payment. I told you this." You didn't tell me it was $12,000. And why is it coming from asterisk our asterisk savings? Where the business revenue? His face changed. The calm evaporated, replaced by a flash of something I'd never seen before, panic immediately masked by anger. You're auditing me now? I'm killing myself trying to build this company for our future, and you're treating me like a suspect? I handle the business. You handle the personal. That was the deal. There was no deal, there was never that deal. But in that moment, his anger was so much louder than my doubt. I backed down, I apologized. He held me and whispered, just trust me, we're so close to a big payoff. The crack in the glass grew longer. The next morning, I did something else. I called the bank. I asked about the loan we'd co-signed. I gave them the loan number from the document I'd signed. The representative put me on hold for a long time. When she came back, her voice was polite, confused. Ma'am, I'm not seeing any active loan under that number. That application was declined over a year ago. The room tilted. The document he showed me, was it fake? A PDF he'd mocked up to get my signature to placate me? My hands went cold. If that loan was declined, where did the $50,000 go? And more urgently, what was he really paying for with our savings? I didn't confront him, not yet, because a new, chilling thought occurred to me. If he could fabricate a loan document, what else wasn't real? The pilot project? The investor calls? I felt like I was living inside a set he'd designed, and the walls were beginning to look like painted cardboard. I decided to wait, to watch, to gather facts. I became a detective in my own home, heart sinking with every piece of data. I checked the mail first every day, and then one Thursday I found it, a plain envelope addressed to him from a bank I didn't recognize. The return address was for a branch in the next state over. It wasn't our joint bank. It wasn't the business bank I knew about. My hands shook as I held it up to the kitchen light. I could see the outline of a statement inside. This was it, the secret ledger. The truth was literally in my hands, sealed behind a thin layer of paper. I heard his key in the door. I had two choices: open it and know everything, or wait and live in the terrifying unknown a little longer. I slipped the envelope into the back of a cookbook as he walked in, smiling, carrying takeout. Long day, he said, kissing my cheek. But good news, I think we're finally turning a corner. I looked at his face, at the easy smile that had once felt like home, and all I could see was the envelope burning a hole in the bookshelf behind him. The corner we were turning, was it toward the truth or off a cliff? The next move was mine, and it would change everything. I waited until 2 in the morning, until Ben's breathing was deep and steady, and I took the envelope from the cookbook. I slid a knife under the flap, my heart hammering against my ribs. The first line of the statement is burned into my memory: account holder Benjamin R. Clark and Jessica M. Clark. My name was on it. He had opened a joint account without me, a secret joint account. The balance was $4,322.16, but that wasn't the shock. The shock was the transaction history. For the past 8 months, there had been regular transfers in, always between $1,000 and $3,000, from an external account I didn't recognize, and matching regular transfers out to something listed only as KR Holdings LLC. My mind trained to find patterns when I scold. This was a conduit. Money came in from somewhere, sat briefly, then was funneled to this KR Holdings. This wasn't a secret savings account, it was a laundering sink, and my name was on it. I felt the floor drop away. This wasn't just hidden debt, this was something else entirely. The next 3 days, I operated on autopilot. I went to work, I made dinner, I kissed my husband goodbye, and I began a forensic audit of my own life. I started with what I could access, our known joint accounts. I looked for withdrawals that matched the deposits into the secret account. Bingo, a transfer of $2,000 from our shared savings on April 12th, a note in the memo field, wedding fund vendor. I remember that. He said it was for the florist's final payment. That money never went to a florist. It went into the secret account and then out to KR Holdings. He wasn't just stealing from our future, he was using the story of our future as the cover. Every lie had a receipt. The new laptop, $1,500 from our joint checking memo home office upgrade. It hit the secret account 2 days later. The phantom loan payment, that $12,000 from our savings, it followed the same path. He was systematically dismantling our safety net dollar by dollar and routing it through an account with my name on it. I had to know what KR Holdings was. A quick business registry search that night, hands trembling over the keyboard, revealed it. KR Holdings LLC was registered in Delaware. The registered agent was a legal service. The sole member listed was Benjamin R. Clark. It was his shell company. He'd created an entire separate corporate entity. This was premeditated. This was structural. Now I faced a choice: confront him with this one piece of paper and watch him spin another lie, or dig until I had the whole truth, until the story was too heavy for even his charm to lift. I chose to dig. But to go further, I needed help. I needed to see the other side of the ledger, the source of the incoming money. I called in a favor from an old colleague, Mark, who worked in fraud detection at a major bank. I met him at a park bench during my lunch break far from my office. I showed him the statement, the hidden account. I didn't show him the KR Holdings part, not yet. I just asked, can you trace where these deposits are coming from, this external account number? He looked at me, his face full of pity. Jess, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He sighed, it's not exactly legal, but give me 2 days. Those 48 hours were an eternity. I slept in fits, dreaming of numbers scrolling on endless black screens. Ben was unusually affectionate, bringing me coffee, asking about my day. The guilt or the performance of it was turned up to maximum. It made my skin crawl. Mark's text came on a Wednesday afternoon. "Call me from a payphone if you can." The drama of it sent a fresh bolt of fear through me. I left work early, claiming a migraine, and drove to a quiet parking lot. His voice was grim. "The source account, it's a business account for Node Technologies, Inc." My stomach clenched, his startup. "But Jess," he continued, "the deposits into your secret joint account, they're not profits. They're listed as owner's draw and expense reimbursement. He's pulling money out of the business." That's normal, right, to pay himself? Not like this. The amounts are irregular and high for a pre-revenue company, but here's the kicker. I did a little more digging on the Node business account itself. The main funding source for the last 18 months, it's not venture capital. It's a series of personal loans, 3 of them totaling over $200,000. The air left my lungs. $200,000 from who? That's the thing, the loans are from a private individual. The name on the paperwork is Ronald D. Avery. I knew that name. Ron Avery was Ben's retired, somewhat reclusive uncle, the kind uncle who'd given him the initial seed money, the uncle Ben said believed in him. Ben had told me those were gifts, not loans. He told Uncle Ron they were gifts too. He positioned himself in the middle, telling each of us a different story. He'd taken loans from his retired uncle, called them investment gifts to me, and was now pulling that money out of the business, not to build it, but to funnel it through a secret account to his own shell company. The startup wasn't a dream. It was a furnace, and he was burning his family's money to keep it looking alive. The scale of the deception finally came into focus. It was a Ponzi scheme of personal relationships. He used my trust and our joint assets as collateral to maintain the lie to his uncle. He used his uncle's life savings to maintain the lie to me. And the end goal, where was the money at KR Holdings going? I drove home that night a zombie. I walked into our apartment and Ben was smiling, holding 2 glasses of wine. "There's my girl. I sold the old car today, got a great cash price. That's going straight into the house fund." The old car, a beat-up sedan he never drove, I hadn't even noticed it was gone. Cash, untraceable cash. A sudden, sickening theory clicked into place. What if the money wasn't ending at KR Holdings? What if that was just another stop? The final destination had to be something he couldn't pay for with a traceable check or transfer from any account linked to his name. Something that required clean, untraceable cash. Gambling or another woman or a drug habit? My mind raced through the cliches, but none quite fit the meticulous corporate structure of it all. This was too organized for a vice. This was financial engineering. I played along. I took the wine. "That's amazing, honey. How much did you get?" $6,000, not bad, right? He beamed. $6,000 in cash now in his possession. If my theory was right, it would soon be on its way to the same shadowy place. I had to follow the money all the way to the end. So I did something I never imagined I could do. I became a shadow. The next morning, I called in sick again. I rented a cheap, nondescript car with cash. I parked down the street from our apartment and waited. Ben left at 10, looking tense, clutching a small backpack. The backpack looked heavy. He didn't go to the co-working space. He drove across town to a sleek, modern office building I didn't recognize. He wasn't there for long. 30 minutes later, he came out, the backpack noticeably lighter. My pulse thundered in my ears. This was it, the drop. I waited until his car disappeared, then I walked into the building lobby. The directory on the wall listed the tenants. Law firms, consulting groups, a few tech incubators. My eyes scanned and then they stopped. On the 12th floor, Apex Venture Partners. A venture capital firm, not a casino, not a mistress's apartment. A venture capital firm. A new, even more terrifying puzzle piece snapped into place. What if the cash wasn't for a vice? What if it was for a performance? What if Ben was using cash to artificially inflate Node's business metrics? To pay for fake users or to bribe a potential client's employee or to create the illusion of revenue to show real investors? The secret account, KR Holdings, the cash withdrawals, it was all stagecraft. He wasn't stealing for himself. He was stealing to fund a mirage, to attract the big investment that would hopefully someday make all the lies true. He was committing fraud to prevent his fraud from being discovered. It was a snake eating its own tail. And our marriage, our home, his uncle's retirement, they were all just fuel for the illusion. I stood in that marble lobby surrounded by strangers, realizing the man I married was not a failed entrepreneur. He was the director of an elaborate, crumbling production, and I had a front row seat to the final act. The question was, when the curtain fell, who would be left holding the debt? I had the proof of the secret account, the shell company, the misappropriated loans. But I needed the final piece, proof of where the cash went inside that venture firm, because that was the crime. That was what could put him in jail, and what could also, if I wasn't careful, entangle me. I went back to my rented car, my whole body trembling. I had to get into his laptop. I needed emails, documents, anything linking the cash to Apex Venture Partners, but Ben was paranoid now. His laptop was with him always, password protected, encrypted. I'd never get access. Unless. I remembered his old tablet, an ancient thing he used to read news in the bathroom. It might still be logged into his email. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot I had left. That night, as he showered, I slipped into the hallway closet where it was charging. My fingers fumbled as I powered it on. The home screen loaded, and there in the corner was the email icon showing he had unread messages. It was still connected. I opened the inbox, my eyes scanned frantically, and there it was, an email from someone named Derek Cho at Apex Venture Partners. The subject line, follow up on node metrics. The preview text read, Ben, the user growth numbers for Q3 look strong, but we need to verify the payment sources for the premium subscriptions before the next. The shower stopped, I heard the bathroom door open. I froze, the tablet burning in my hands. I had seconds. I tapped the email, it opened, I scrolled, my vision blurring with adrenaline. Phrases jumped out, cash retainer, unconventional customer acquisition, need paper trail. This was it, the smoking gun. Then Ben's voice right outside the closet door, Jess, you in here. I shoved the tablet behind a stack of towels, my heart trying to escape my chest. The closet door handle began to turn. The door opened, light from the hallway cut across my face. Ben stood there, a towel around his waist, hair dripping. What are you doing in here? He asked, his voice casual but his eyes sharp, scanning the cramped space. Looking for the guest towels, I said, my voice miraculously steady. I reached past the stack hiding the tablet and pulled out a folded set from the shelf. My parents are visiting this weekend, remember? His shoulders relaxed a fraction. Oh right, yeah, he ran a hand through his wet hair. Well, hurry up, I'm starving, let's order in. He turned and walked back to the bedroom. I leaned against the closet wall, my legs weak with relief. I had gone away with it, but I had also seen enough. The phrase need paper trail from Derek Cho's email echoed in my head. They were getting suspicious. The house of cards was wobbling, and when it fell, the liability would rain down on everyone whose name was attached to it, including mine. I couldn't just walk away, I was in it. My name was on the secret joint account that funneled money. If this was investigated, I could be seen as a willing participant. I needed legal advice, and I needed it yesterday. The next morning, I called a lawyer, not a divorce lawyer, a white-collar criminal defense attorney. I found one named Carla Rossi, known for representing spouses caught in financial fraud. I told her the broad strokes in a frantic, whispered phone call from my office. She listened without interruption. You need to secure all the evidence you currently have immediately, she said, her tone cool and procedural. But understand, by investigating him, you are also building a case that could put your husband in prison. You need to decide what your goal is. Do you want out clean or do you want justice? I didn't have an answer, I just knew I couldn't be his collateral damage. I followed her instructions. I bought a cheap encrypted flash drive. That night while Ben was on a late investor call, I copied everything. The secret bank statement, the business registry for KR Holdings, screenshots of the suspicious transfers from our joint accounts. I even took photos of the tablet screen with my phone, capturing the damning email from Apex Venture Partners. I felt like a thief in my own home. In a way I was stealing back the truth. Carla reviewed the documents. Her response was grim. This is wire fraud, possibly securities fraud if he's misled investors with these falsified metrics. The cash payments to the venture firm are a huge red flag. You are correct, your name on that conduit account is a serious problem. You could be looking at charges of conspiracy or money laundering if you can't prove you were an unwitting dupe. The word dupe felt like a slap. How do I prove that? You need a clear, documented timeline showing your discovery process, and you may need to proactively report this to authorities before it blows up. It's called getting ahead of the narrative, but once you do that, there's no going back. The government will take over and your life will become a public record. I was trapped between a crime and a prosecutor. The person who was supposed to be my life partner had built a cage for me with his lies. Then the pressure cooker exploded from another direction. Uncle Ron called. He never called me. His voice was strained, old, and full of a fear I'd never heard before. Jessica, honey, I need to talk to Ben, but he's not answering. Is everything okay with the company? My mouth went dry. I think so, Ron, what's going on? He sighed, a shaky, weary sound. The loan, the big one, it's due, the balloon payment. I told Ben when I gave it to him, the terms were clear. $120,000 due at the end of this month. I've got my own property taxes to pay. He promised the company would be profitable by now. $120,000 due this month. Ben hadn't mentioned a balloon payment. He said the loans were flexible, long-term, another lie. He had taken a massive, high-risk loan from his retired uncle and hidden the true terms, and now it was due with no money to pay it. Ron, I said, my voice barely a whisper, can you email me a copy of the loan agreement just so I can understand it better? Maybe I can help figure something out. He agreed, grateful for any lifeline. The document hit my inbox 10 minutes later. It was worse than I imagined. It wasn't just a loan, it was a personal loan secured by a second mortgage on Uncle Ron's paid-off house. If Ben defaulted, Ron could lose his home. Ben wasn't just risking our future, he was about to destroy the past, the safety of a kind old man who trusted him. The moral weight of it crushed me. I couldn't let that happen. I confronted him that night. I didn't show him all my cards. I led with Uncle Ron. I told him Ron had called me, worried about the balloon payment. Ben's face went through 3 emotions in rapid succession: shock, panic, and then a cold, calculated anger. He called you? Why would he do that? I'm handling it. How, Ben? How are you handling $120,000 due in 3 weeks? Where is that money coming from? The Apex deal, he shouted, throwing his hands up. It's almost closed. The term sheet is coming any day. Their investment will cover Ron's loan and everything else. You just have to be patient. The Apex deal that needs a paper trail for the cash payments? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. The color drained from his face. The silence that followed was absolute and terrifying. He knew I knew. The performance was over. The man behind the curtain was exposed. You've been snooping, he said, the words flat and cold. I've been surviving, I fired back. You opened a bank account with my name on it without telling me. You're funneling money from our joint accounts, from your uncle's loans, through a shell company. You're using cash to fake business metrics for investors. Ben, this is fraud. This is prison. For a moment, he just stared at me, and I saw it, not guilt but rage, a pure, unadulterated fury that I had uncovered his game. You have no idea what it takes, he seethed. No idea the pressure I'm under to build something. I'm this close to saving everything. And you're going to blow it all up because you're scared? You're going to ruin my life over some technicalities. Technicalities, I choked out. You lied to me, you stole from us, you're about to make your uncle homeless. It's temporary, he roared. All of it is temporary. Once the funding comes through, I pay everyone back with interest. Everyone wins, you'll see, you'll thank me. He was living in a complete fantasy, the grand delusion where the ends justified any means. There was no talking to him. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a desperate stranger who saw me as an obstacle. I want my name off that account, I said, my final offer. I want you to come clean to Uncle Ron and figure out a way to protect his house. And I want full transparency on all our finances right now, or I walk and I take everything I know with me. He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You walk to where? Your name is on the deeds to this mess, Jessica. You're in it. If I go down, you're coming with me. That's what joint means. It was a threat, a clear, calculated threat. He was willing to drag me down with him to save his own skin. That was the moment my love for him finally, irreparably broke. Not with a sob, but with a chilling clarity. This was war, and I needed a better strategy. I went back to Carla Rossi. I played her the audio recording I'd secretly made of our confrontation. Her face was grim. He's right about one thing, the joint liability is a nightmare, but his threat is also your opportunity. It demonstrates his awareness of the fraud and his intent to implicate you. It's ugly, but it helps your dupe defense. She laid out my nuclear option. I could go to the district attorney's office with my evidence and my recording and seek immunity in exchange for my full cooperation. It would trigger an investigation that would dismantle Ben's world and likely his freedom. It was the only way to guarantee I wasn't held responsible for the money laundering. It felt impossible to voluntarily light the fuse that would blow up my husband's life, but he had left me no other exit. He had welded the door shut from the inside. I asked Carla for 48 hours to think. I spent them in a fog of grief and terror, and then the decision was made for me. I got a notification from our joint banking app, a new transfer, $5,000 from our savings to the secret joint account. The memo read, Final Apex Retainer. He was doing it again, right now, using our last bit of security to pay another bribe to keep the fantasy alive for a few more days. He was a shark that had to keep moving or die, and he was consuming everything in his path to do it. I watched the notification glow on my phone screen in the dark of our bedroom. He was asleep beside me, peaceful. I knew what I had to do. It was the hardest, most necessary decision of my life. I wasn't just saving myself anymore. I was saving Uncle Ron. I was preventing him from defrauding other investors. I was stopping the monster he'd become. The next morning, I put on a black suit I'd bought for a funeral 2 years prior. I drove to the county courthouse, my folder of evidence and the flash drive in my bag. I walked through the metal detectors, my heels clicking on the polished floor. I asked for the white-collar crime division. I was directed to a small, windowless office. A tired-looking investigator named Detective Miller listened as I told my story from the beginning. I placed the folder on his desk. I handed him the flash drive. I played the recording. His tired expression slowly changed to one of focused intensity. When I finished, there was a long silence. Mrs. Clark, he said finally, what you've brought us, this is significant. We'll need to move quickly. He could be destroying evidence or moving assets as we speak. My heart was a drum. What happens now? Now, he said, picking up his phone, we get a warrant, and you, if you agree, become a confidential informant. The next move is his, but when he makes it, we'll be watching. I had just turned my husband into a target, and I had no idea if the shield I'd been promised would be strong enough to protect me from the blast. The 48 hours after I left the detective's office were the longest of my life. I moved into a hotel, paying with the last of my personal credit card. I told Ben I was visiting a sick friend out of state. Every notification on my phone made me jump. I was waiting for the world to crack open. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was watching the local news on the muted hotel TV just for the noise when I saw the building, our co-working space. Police cars, their lights flashing silently, a figure in a suit, Detective Miller, walking out the front doors, and then Ben in handcuffs being let out, his head down, his face a mask of stunned defiance. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Local tech CEO arrested on fraud charges." My breath caught. It was real. I had done this. I watched as they put him in the back of a squad car. The camera zoomed in on the glass door of the building where a uniformed officer was tapping a search warrant. The fantasy was over. The production had been shut down. My phone exploded. First my mother, terrified, then colleagues, then a number I didn't recognize, a reporter. I let everything go to voicemail. The only call I took was from Carla Rossi, my lawyer. "It's done," she said. "They executed simultaneous warrants at the office and your apartment. They've seized all his electronics. Your cooperation agreement is signed and sealed. You are officially a cooperating witness for the state. Do not speak to anyone, not your family, not his family, especially not the press. I'll handle the divorce filing tomorrow." The word divorce sounded clinical, final, a necessary surgical procedure. The next week was a blur of legal machinery. I gave a formal videotape statement to the prosecutors, walking them through every document, every transfer, every lie. I explained the secret account, KR Holdings, the fake loan document, the cash payments to Apex. I played the recording of Ben threatening me. The lead prosecutor, a severe woman named Valdez, listened without expression, then nodded. "You've given us everything we need to flip the venture firm. They'll talk to avoid charges." She was right. Derek Cho from Apex Venture Partners, faced with the evidence of the cash bribes to inflate Node's metrics, cooperated fully. He gave them emails, internal memos, even records of the cash drops. The case against Ben went from solid to airtight. Ben was charged with 6 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of securities fraud, and 2 counts of money laundering. He pleaded not guilty at his arraignment. His family hired an expensive defense attorney. They put out a statement calling him a visionary entrepreneur targeted by an overzealous system and a vengeful spouse. They painted me as the villain, a gold digger who didn't understand the pressures of building a company. For a few days, the online comments sections were a nightmare. But the narrative shifted when the indictment was unsealed. The details were staggering. The total amount misappropriated was over $350,000. Most of it was Uncle Ron's life savings. The story was no longer about a struggling startup, it was about a predator who preyed on his own family. The vengeful spouse angle evaporated. I was recast as the whistleblower, the niece who saved her uncle from ruin. The divorce proceedings were a grim annex to the criminal case. With Ben facing decades in prison, his leverage was gone. My immunity agreement protected our marital assets from being seized as proceeds of crime, but there wasn't much left to protect. We had to sell the apartment. The equity, what little remained after the mortgage and fees, was split. I used my half to pay back my parents for their wedding contribution. It felt like the only clean thing I could do. I never saw Ben again after his arrest. Our communication went through layers of lawyers, but I heard about his plea deal. Faced with the mountain of evidence and the testimony from Apex, he took a deal. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of money laundering. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, ordered to pay restitution of $280,000 primarily to Uncle Ron. 5 years, it felt like both a lifetime and not enough. There was no satisfaction in it, just a hollow, weary relief. The monster was contained. My focus turned to Uncle Ron with the restitution order in place, but with Ben in prison and penniless, the money wasn't coming anytime soon. Ron was going to lose his house. I couldn't let that happen. I wasn't responsible for the debt, but I felt responsible for the man. So I made a deal with him. I had kept my job through everything, my professional reputation scarred but intact. I took out a home equity loan on a small condo I bought after the divorce. I didn't give Ron the money. I bought the second mortgage from the bank at a discount. I became his lender. We worked out a modest, manageable monthly payment he could afford on his pension. It wasn't charity, it was a contract. It let him keep his dignity and his home. He cried when I showed him the paperwork. I told him it was the least I could do for family. We never spoke of Ben. Now here's the final piece, the detail I didn't see coming. About a year after the sentencing, I got a letter, not from Ben, but from a woman named Liana. She was an investigator for the State Securities Commission. She asked to meet me for coffee. I agreed, wary. We met at a quiet cafe. Liana was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "I've been reviewing the Node case for our internal registry," she said. "Your testimony was incredible. The precision, the documentation, you built a forensic case while your world was falling apart. I thanked her, unsure where this was going. We have a problem, she continued. Financial infidelity, secret accounts, predatory lending within families, it's an epidemic, but it flies under the radar. It's not sexy like a Ponzi scheme. It happens in quiet homes between people who are supposed to love each other. The victims are often too ashamed or too financially entangled to come forward until it's too late. She slid a brochure across the table. It was for a new nonprofit initiative. Financial First Responders. They were training a network of advocates, accountants, therapists, even clergy to spot the early signs of coercive financial control and secret debt in relationships. They needed a director of education, someone who could speak from experience, who could teach others how to see the red flags I had missed. We think that someone could be you, Liana said. I looked at the brochure, then out the window. For over a year, my story had been about destruction of a marriage, a family, a future. It was defined by loss. This was an offer to rebuild, not a home, but a purpose, to use my pain as a blueprint to protect others. I took the job. Today, I run that program. We've trained over 400 advocates in 3 states. I tell my story not for sympathy, but as a case study. I show the fake loan document. I explain the pattern of the secret conduit account. I teach people how to run a financial health check with their partner that's based on transparency, not suspicion. I bought a small house. It has a garden. I grow tomatoes badly. I have a dog, a rescue mutt named Ledger. My relationship with my parents, strained by the scandal, is slowly healing. They finally understand I wasn't a victim of circumstance. I was a casualty of a calculated fraud. And Ben, he's serving his time. I hear snippets through the legal grapevine. He tried to start a prison newsletter, a business incubator for inmates, old habits. I don't hate him. Hate is a fire you have to feed, and I'm too tired. What I feel is more like a permanent sadness for the man he could have been and a steely resolve to never again confuse potential with character. The truth did not set me free in some magical, painless way. It blew up my life. But in the rubble, I found pieces of myself I never knew were missing, my courage, my forensic mind, my capacity to protect someone else. I didn't get my marriage back, I didn't get my money back, but I built a life where my security is not held in a joint account, but in my own 2 hands. The door to that old life is closed, locked, and the key was melted down in the heat of the truth. And I've learned that's okay. Some doors should never be reopened. You just turn and you walk toward a new one you built yourself, and you decide who gets to walk through it with you. My name is Jessica. I was a victim of financial infidelity. Now I help others spot the lies before the cost becomes too high. This isn't a story about a wedding day betrayal. It's a story about the day I stopped auditing the books and started auditing my life. And what I found was that the most valuable asset I had wasn't on any balance sheet. It was my own judgment. And finally, I learned to trust it. So what's the final balance on a story like this? It's not just a number in a bank account. It's the value of trust once broken and the cost of rebuilding a self. My story is one of millions. Financial infidelity is the silent epidemic happening behind closed doors, in shared beds, and over joint tax returns. It's the lie that feels too small to mention until it's too big to escape. We talk about love, compatibility, shared dreams. We rarely talk about shared financial ethics. We merge our lives long before we merge our balance sheets, and we often mistake secrecy for privacy. But privacy is about boundaries. Secrecy is about power. And when money becomes a weapon of control or a tool for deception, the relationship isn't a partnership anymore. It's a hostage situation. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: your financial intuition is a form of self-respect. That gut feeling when the numbers don't add up, that chill when a story changes, listen to it. Asking for transparency is not a lack of trust, it's the foundation of real trust. A healthy partnership isn't afraid of a spreadsheet, it's built on one. To anyone listening who sees a flicker of their own situation in mine, the vague answers, the defensive anger, the mysterious withdrawals, you are not crazy, you are not controlling, you are being managed. Start documenting, have one calm, clear conversation. And if the truth doesn't come, you have your answer, protect yourself. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else's fantasy warm. And to those who have walked this path already, who are sifting through the wreckage of what was supposed to be a life, you're not just a victim, you are a survivor. The rebuilding is slow, brick by brick, and the blueprint is yours alone to draw. The most profound wealth you will ever build is the sovereignty of your own life. This channel is about stories that unearth the hidden architectures of our lives, the silent agreements, the unspoken betrayals, the quiet triumphs. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, or if it simply made you feel less alone, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It tells the algorithm that stories with substance, stories that dare to be messy and real, deserve to be heard. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what would your one piece of advice be for someone starting to question their financial partnership? Or simply type transparency if you believe it's the bedrock of any real love. Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing witness. This journey isn't just about the money we lose, but about the selves we reclaim. However your story unfolds, may you build it on a foundation that is unshakably, irrevocably your own. I'll see you in the next one.